good. But all right, so what do you think about naming this piece right here?
Which one?
The blue one, the blue tapestry.
I don't know, but so when I was looking at it from the way that it was initially painted, which was, horizontal, I was thinking about maybe like days go by, but days would be DAZE.
Mm.
Um, and mainly I was thinking about that really because that's been like a title in my mind for almost 7, 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew when I was making the red pieces, I had to make something that was a little bit more blue, just because I think when you look at the color spectrum and you start to involve feelings and emotions, I think I'm more blue and purple than any other color. So I naturally gravitate towards those colors. I love the sky. That's really one of the reasons why I started to incorporate the clouds.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was like, okay, well, I've had these conversations about doing these tapestries and making them more organic, working outside of just the square or the rectangle, excuse me. But I don't know, brother. I'm torn.
I feel like Days Go By is a cool name. It's a hard name. I feel like it's also like it matches the feeling and mood of this piece. I think my initial thought was vertical sky or vertical skyline. Um, just as a name, like it's very like
Mm-hmm.
on the nose. Um, or like vertical skies. I don't know what it necessarily says poetically, but I feel like, even the simplest of names can have a poetic meaning. But I feel like Days Go By is actually a strong name for it, especially since you're not spelling it in the traditional spelling. You're spelling it as a, what is it? I think it's called a double entendre or something like that. So yeah, I think that that's a strong name. I mean, it's a very strong piece. So I feel like I don't know if you given it as much um, I don't know, appreciation as you might give other work in this show right now, but
Honestly, I,
I
I I've given it the thought. My appreciation for this piece is very low. Um, and it's not because um, the size or the scale. It's more so about the time and effort that went into making this piece.
yeah.
And I understand that this piece is a finished piece. However, I'm used to spending more time with a piece. Um, and then what kind of like is mind boggling about this work is normally I'm told to spend more time. And then when
Mm-hmm.
I start to work in this type of style, now it's about, is that enough? Are you going too far?
Mm-hmm.
You know, can more be done? Should more be done? So I'm like I said, I like the piece. It has to grow on me.
I think that, what I'm seeing in it, maybe you're seeing in it, but what I'm seeing in it is um, one, a level of sophistication that comes with any type of painting. Even though it's not representational, it was more intuitive. It was not necessarily something you had to be like, okay, red here, green here, blue here. Like you just felt it and you just let it go. And then, it was one big square. And then we came to the decision that maybe it would look better if you cut it down to certain this non-traditional sort of border or composition or whatever you want to call it. I think that for me it has the same sophistication as one of the figurative works because of that element, and I think the red one does too, because you added like the sort of curtain effect, you added the figure to it. But this one doesn't have a figure. These other two have a figure. They have and the sort of environment has to, or Doesn't have to, but definitely does converse with those figures. Even that unknown that's peeling back and that one over there, they're definitely conversing with the figures that are featured in these tapestries. But this one, without the figure, it does have the cloud of representation. But even you disrupt that and made the decision to stick with it being vertical. Um, I think that that's what makes that's like the level of sophistication in something that did not take as much, painstaking mental effort to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I really like this piece.
So I'm at this point. I'm still not there with the name. What I'll do is I'll double back on this.
That's
I'm
fine.
gonna take this one home with me mentally, because one thing I do know, and just like you just kind of put it out there as, a lot of my titles are very poetic,
Mm-hmm.
and um, un- unconsciously I do that, but I do it for a good reason, because I think when it come to titling like pieces, I do understand that you don't want to give the viewer too much, but when you start to talk about titles in a way of how poets would write them,
Mm-hmm.
that alone is a whole nother piece
Yeah.
corresponding with the piece,
Yeah.
and it kind of gives you a direction to steer your conversation, but it don't give you enough to kind of like readily identify this is exactly what this conversation should be.
Right. I mean, but it's just like the piece, the title, you know, between the lines. It doesn't give you everything. You have an entire like association of what that would bring. But when I like, say for instance, someone like our family, they might come in and be like, okay, this title, Between the Lines. They're gonna literally look between the lines and try to, find the conversation you're trying to have. And it may not be until you write a statement or until you present the thought and philosophy behind that piece, this piece,
Mm-hmm.
that people get, oh, okay, boom, like I'm getting it. Like it's jazz, it's music, it's the level of mastery that one achieves in their own blackness or in the scope of blackness, in this burgeoning blackness, because it's also extending somewhat, it's extending out within a framework of, the raw canvas. And then she's breaking clearly from that realm, but breaking out into the space, sort of the same way that any artist or musician would, um, in the case of creating. So I think that it's like it's. I'm able to read that.
Yeah.
Not everybody's gonna come in and understand your pieces. That's just like my pieces. My pieces are named. Honestly, the only one that's really on the nose, and even the ones that aren't on the nose, like curtains is on the nose because there's curtains, but it doesn't really explain everything that I'm trying to say about blackness and hip
Yeah.
hop and all this other shit. The only one that truly is like trust the police.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that you kind of get where I'm going with that. It's really it's the play on words, all that other stuff. Anybody can look at that painting, look at that name, and be like, okay, get what you're talking about. But pieces like Breakthrough, that still, it's something that opens the door, but doesn't explain everything. So I think a great title just kind of inspires a little bit of direction, which is why I like Between the Lines with this piece, because it inspires a lot of direction as to where one should be focusing their attention. With that piece, it's kind of a little bit different because
Mm-hmm.
it invites you into a whole nother world. It's almost like this. I wouldn't say that this invites me into a whole other world. That Between the Lines invites me into this other world. It's almost like this other world is coming at me, and she's kind of like ushering it in to me. But that is like a window, a portal that like you almost kind of gotta fall into. I don't know if you like, can think about like cartoons or games and shit when people jump out of helicopters and shit, how the
Mm-hmm.
sky be turning. That's kind of what I think about when I like almost like I'm gonna dive into this a sky.
But
Um,
also, I'm gonna say this right because I think this show is really about um, perspective, but it's also about movement and engagement. And I think the more you move around the work, I think you start to see new stories come alive. And it's almost like from this angle, I'm looking at this tapestry as like sound, music that's coming from this horn that this guy is playing. And one thing I was noticing about how the show is hung, it's hung from left to right and right to left.
Yeah.
But there's also a center stage with what's going on in the sculpture piece, and then this background allowing you to not only look at it as a background, for an image, but the background for life, for what we really deal with, and how we look at the history of Black people, the history of the unknown.
Right. Right.
So what I want to do is, before we dive into that, I would love to talk about this red piece, because where we started is it being two canvas,
Yeah.
and then find its way to becoming another 12-foot painting,
Yeah.
which should be longer than this. um this piece is something, bro. I mean, honestly, this is my favorite piece, and I don't have a title for this. All I can tell you is what I felt when I did it.
Well, what is that? What did you feel?
So
Okay, before you go into that, what did you feel in 3 to 5 words? If you could put a sentence to it, just one sentence, what did you feel? For the listeners, this is a great exercise for naming pieces, by the way.
how I feel about it is, I don't know. It's like, all right, so when I think about it, I'm like, there has to be better days than this. And all of this was based off of a mood swing from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And within this piece, I really was able to take all those bottled emotions that I was dealing with just with my Airbnb stress, what I was going on in school, trying to figure my things out, trying to, prep myself to get out of the funk that I was in. So I was like, okay, let me just put it out on canvas. Whatever I feel, I knew red had to be the color. And it's really a color I never worked with. I never worked with this much red. But it was some type of anger that I was feeling. Not that I was angry, I was just upset with the thought that, some things shouldn't be done to human beings. People, should and will continue to demand respect, um, demand for their, humanity to not be questioned, you know. So that's what I was doing with the piece. But then I started thinking about hell. Honestly, I really did, because at that time I was like, damn, this feel like hell. Now I understand what people say when they say hell is on earth. We already here, brother. We're already here. Like, look at the news. Look at what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And though I'm a small vessel of what's happening in society in North America, the ability to rise above all those skyscrapers that seem too steep to climb, I find my way moving through all these hellish days in a way where it not only affects me, but it inspires me. And there's a specific amount of solidarity I feel in conquering these steep glass towers.
Okay. So you didn't do the sentence, but the first sentence was all I really needed. The rest of it was great explanation. I'm glad to have heard it, and I'm glad that you kind of have that understanding of how an idea can start one way, can be okay, better days than this, and then it becomes, and it's also a part of a mood swing, but it also becomes a greater conversation of, well, shit, the days we all are experiencing collectively have been hell,
Yeah,
literally. Um, in terms of what we know hell to be, which is internal suffering.
yeah,
There's plenty of suffering in the world. So I definitely see the connection. And it's almost like that this double layering of the canvases is like a personal sort of better days than this, and like, oh, like my own personal issues, but then you're unveiling the connection between this broader sky, this broader, like, and not like a sky that's like, oh, this is, a positive sky, but a sky of like, collective relationship to these feelings, these emotions, this inevitability of being placed in this environment that is chaotic, that is hellish. So I like that, and I think it's a beautiful explanation. You have to figure out how to, once you take this audio, you're gonna have to write that out.
mm-hmm.
But the way that I feel like the way that serendipity works is, you never expect it, but it's like always burgeoning. It's always on the horizon. And with that piece, you said it's you the name you were thinking um, was
Days go by.
days go by. And then over here you said there's got to be better days than this.
Mm,
So better days than this, days go by.
I like that. I like that.
I think that that is like, and then like it also, like I said, it provides earlier, like provides that window or that door of like, okay, well, what do you mean better days than this? Or what do you mean by days go by? And then you can kind of get into the explanations and the philosophies that you're really talking about. But even if you're not present, the viewer can imagine a world and probably find the relationship to the emotion, because also like you used a very powerful color, specifically these gradations of red in this, in what I guess is going to be better days than this, is is already a strong emotion. We know how color field painting works, but then with days go by, it also evokes emotions and relationships and layers of, you know um, intimacy with a viewer and a piece, through the power of color,
Mm-hmm.
especially because it's about more about those color relationships and more about those forms that are those form and non-forms that are created than it is about the figure in, so many ways. The figure still does that, but it's very meticulous. It's very, you know expertly applied. It's not just how I was feeling. It was, I'm feeling this way, painting this thing,
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm painting the feeling that I'm. This thing is not the feeling I'm feeling.
Yeah.
You know. Um, so yeah, I think I think that would be a strong relationship in title. I mean, and then you're settled on the figurative work, the names of the figurative work. Those are already named, right?
So yes, there is the youngest sister of Harriet Tubman. Um, I forgot what the Negro for Sale signs, Negro artwork for sale was called, but I got it in my notes. and then of course the Invisible Man, Slack Power, and honestly, this piece kind of demands a name now, but they're meant to be sold separately. So I was just thinking about the Sasha project, and then just title them one and two, because eventually there'll be like 30 of them.
Mhm. I see it. Sasha Project 1 and 2 makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
it's our the name's already there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we've settled on the Council of the Unknown.
Yeah.
Do you want to put the on there or just Council of the Unknown
Council of the Unknown.
versus the Council of the Unknown?
It sounds better when it says Council of the Unknown,
Okay.
but it sounds more prominent when you say the Council of the Unknown.
It does, yeah. It sounds, I don't know, it sounds a little bit more like, I guess, story like when you say the council. And with council love, it's almost as if like there's a familiarity there, like about this. It's not like something a storybook. It's like we all know the unknown. We all know unknowns exist in this world. Council of the Unknown is really like sort of just, I guess, entitled to me. Um, in my poetic brain, I'm thinking of it as like this sort of just familiarity from the audience, or should it open up a familiarity from the audience if they have a relationship with the concept of the unknown in general. Not your unknowns, but just
Mm-hmm.
the concept of the unknown in general. But if you say the council of the unknown, it's almost like, let me tell you a story about.
But you know what's crazy is like when you brought up like the Council of the Unknown, I started thinking about a piece that I worked on before, a painting, The Death of Socrates.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to look at this and I'm like, damn, what's really going on in this piece? There's many ways to read it, but there's something going on in this piece. There's a story in this piece.
It is, yeah.
Um, and of course, I know that I'm going to have to spend a lot of time thinking about this piece.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be better to get a video of it so I can
Definitely.
continuously put it on loop
Yeah.
and move it around.
Yeah.
But I feel like this person right here is on trial. And the fact that he's not completely over the edge shows that A, he has extremely good luck, and B, what he knows is enough to keep him alive and continue to do what he want to do and what he need to do. And I started thinking about, Socrates, you know. But then I get all of these like messages and mixed messages about these emotions of these unknown. His wife's Dippy turned her head when he drank the cup of Hamlock, excuse me. So I don't know. It's just crazy. Like I just like you said, like the title just kind of puts you into a different perspective, and then what I'm gonna get about this piece, and you may not get that, the next person may not get that. I think everybody get their own story,
Mm.
but it opens it up for you to actually be able to recognize something that has to do with either the council, another piece of artwork that you've maybe seen that was decorated in a way where it's theatrical. It's a lot, bro. I think even if Donathan was to look at this piece and all that he knows about plays and acting and all of that and lighting, how important that is, I think he could give us a whole another way of looking at this. I can't wait till you get here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna say this. At the end of the day, I think all of this work is very fluent,
I think
and it
that
says a lot.
I think that each one of these unknowns, the guy in the center with the guy with the chain, the unknown with the chain is very much like, I'm the center of this conversation. Because I mean he's like, or that's what, you basically would get if you're sitting out in front. You're like, okay, that's the main guy. we all of everything else revolves around that character. But I think that, like you said, when you there's so many narratives, like because when you come over here, you do get the sense of, well, what is his story? Why is he faced this? Why is he faced this way in particular? And I think it goes towards this piece of, sort of like better days than this, and then also what you were just saying about the trial. And when you said the trial, I'm almost like, okay, well, is this figure representative of someone who's already been, what's the word for it when you're sentenced? Has this
Mm-hmm.
person already been sentenced for their misdeeds or their miscomings or their mistakes or whatever? And are they, forever meant, to sit on this edge, weighted down by you know, the foundation of their mistakes or of their life or of the, so seeds they've sown. And
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of reach across and you see this, heartless man, you know, or hollowed heart sort of emerging from this cave. And then you kind of get the conversation of Plato's cave, and he's emerging from the cave, and yet there are still shadows. And I think that that creates a whole other fucking timeline. But then if you're over there, you see him from behind. You see him emerging, but you also see this other female figurative unknown sort of burgeoning from the colored. I don't even know what to call it, like the colored lava, almost like she's being like literally sculpted and molded out of that material earth, almost like reminding me of like Gaia or Mother Earth, like that type of energy. But then there's also this little the black man that kind of associates with
Mm-hmm.
between the lines. And honestly, he feels to me, when I read him from over there and when I read him from over here, I kind of feel like he's almost like a shadow self. I don't know if you've heard of like shadow work and stuff like that that people do. It's basically working with like subconscious parts of yourself and like trying to work on things that just be better, or you may not know how your own shadow is preventing you from doing certain things. So it's a whole concept. You should look it up sometime. But
Okay.
it reminds me of like a shadow self. And but all of this is happening, and we all over here. But then there's this really, really big, important piece that this female figure who's disengaged from everything else. Both the female figures are disengaged from everything that is really kind of going on with these guys. I know they all kind of seem disengaged from each other, but as far as grouping and lighting and just relationship, this really stands out because it's just as big as the sort of center figure, but it's removed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like negotiating with history.
Facts.
So
I
yeah,
like that.
it's a lot of deeper meanings that I think even like I'm almost like, damn, like you need a field of these,
Yeah.
or you just need different stages and different platforms in order to continue these narratives going forward, like in the future. But I think that this definitely tells us a really strong story, and I think you're right. You're going to videos, as many pictures as possible. You're really going to have to spend a lot of time just like thinking about what kind of was done unconsciously or subconsciously in the making of these figures and even in the placement of these figures. Um, and then also think about, okay, well, how would I do it different if I were to?
Yeah.
Or if I was to do the same, or if I was to continue the story, what needs to go? Where do I need to go? What needs to be made? What figures need to be sort of created or birthed from the process, from the this beginning?
Hmm.
I'm excited for it though.
Oh yeah. I'm out, bro.
I'm stoked for
The unveiling.
the unveiling. And I think that to what we were talking about earlier about like sort of this being isolated from the rest of your cohort. There's it's a win and it's a loss at the same time. But to me, the win is bigger. The win is bigger because you're in the main space. You got technically got more space um, than all of them, and I mean the work is phenomenal. We know that, but like it, you're also graduating right next to it.
Yeah. I started thinking about the first poem of my thesis, The Artist in the Cliff. And it talks about this journey that this artist takes through all these like withering roads, um, all the dead, decomposed leaves that he's walking over,
Mm-hmm.
things that's like a part of him.
Yeah.
And then all the things that he's lost on his way within his route to seeing this, this magnificent view. And halfway through the poem, he stops for a moment and he, screams to like the mountainside and says, "This year I've lost more than I have gained, but what I've gained is far greater than what I lost."
Mm.
And in a way, that kind of speaks to a lot what's going on in my current situation.
Yeah.
But I think the crazy thing is after all my teachers and Kevin and them and pushed me to, look at work a little differently, I was kind of like on the fence because I was like, well, I've already written my thesis,
Yeah.
so I got these figurative paintings. Of course, I plan on coming up here and doing some godly type, fucking huge murals. But I think, in a way, a lot of this was needed. It was crazy because I like when I'm making them, like, damn, what is Mac gonna think about this? Because
I
this,
mean,
I'm like, bro, when I see this, he gonna be like, why?
no, I mean, part of me is like always gonna be like, why? Because, you know, that's just the way I think. I'm gonna say why, whether it's a figure in it or not.
Facts.
You can show me a figurative painting, and I'll be like, all right, well, why did you do it that way? Or why are you deciding to can leave it like this instead of doing something else? So, I think that also we clown a lot of work like this because it doesn't have what I was talking about earlier, is that level of sophistication. It doesn't have, or it might, and we're not able to appreciate it as much because we don't have that door to be of opening into it. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like a lot of black artists' work has an opening, a level of opening into it, is that, allows certain viewers to engage with it a little bit better. But like when we go and we look at work like the rest that we see in this gallery right now, there's color pop and there's maybe things that might be a little bit like attractive, but there's not a lot that's like, oh my God, like I want to sit down and really like engage with that for longer than a couple minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's very like, if we laid this, if we had just hung these all flat and you didn't have the figures on there, you didn't took the figure off like they said, you left that square, you left those separated, you didn't put the figures on those or do the cutout, it
Mm-hmm.
would have been like this.
Yeah.
We would have felt the way you felt about them when they were just hanging by themselves in the studio, pretty much undecided on where you were gonna go.
Yeah.
Because we were both like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's cool. It ain't your favorite piece, it ain't our favorite piece, but shit. I mean, it's gonna be hard in the gallery space. It's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
cool. I see what they're saying, but once we got it up on the walls the way that you want it, and we made the tweaks that you needed in order to bring that level of artistry that you usually bring with all your work. I think that it just like it brings it miles above like what you probably could have expected when making these.
Yeah. Most definitely, bro.
And it makes me like, okay, damn, I was working on some abstract work. Like maybe I shouldn't have gave up on them hoes too quickly. Like, cause part of me was like, I'm like, bro, I don't like this shit. Like, this is garbage. What am I doing? I'm wasting, like you were saying, wasting paint.
Yeah.
But now, if you didn't waste that paint, you wouldn't have this narrative,
Yeah.
which was a last minute addition at that too. It was like you had the materials, and that's what I really like about the process of hanging this show is like, you were even just your summer up here when
I'm
you
gonna
was
say
working.
this: my professors look at my work and they understand the true um, the true artist in me, but they also understand that I have opened myself up to completely take my um, to completely humble myself when it comes to the way I think art should be.
Mm,
And I mean, Kate sees a little bit of Kate in her, and Kevin
mm,
sees a little bit of Kevin, and Michael
yeah,
sees a little bit of Michael. Other Kate sees a little bit of
yeah.
Kate,
Shit,
and
I
they
see a
like,
lot of
damn,
that.
like, and they looking at it, and I think they look at the work and they be like, damn, like, I wish I had more students that listened.
Yeah,
Like, not just take everything that I
yeah,
say, but like actually listen. Like, and I
and
told,
yeah,
I tell people all the time, like, bro, at the end of the day, when we are talking about artwork, I'm going to always push back on what you say because that's gonna I'm gonna get a better conversation rather than be like, yeah, you right, you right, you right. But what
yeah,
about this or what about that? Like, but I didn't really want it to look like that. I didn't want
yeah,
it to be about that. I wanted it to be about this. Let's have that conversation. And I see a little bit of like all my professors here, even David, because he introduced Giorgio Gamden talking about the contemporary.
yeah,
And I would have never found. Well, I probably would have stumbled on the allegory of Plato's cave, but actually, shit, Brighton introduced me to that when he came in and saw my work. He like, ever heard that the allegory of Plato's cave? I'm like, no, what's that? And he literally took an ink pen and drew on my wall. Like this cave and then these projections and
yeah,
kind of explained to me. I
yeah,
was like, I like this. This is why I'm here. Um, I don't know if I really want to be a philosopher, but I do know they have very poetic ways of looking at life. So I'll always be engaged with that, even though I would prefer to listen to Tennyson, over Fanon.
But at the end of the day, like even if you aren't a philosopher, well, I'm about to be a philosopher.
Facts.
So like what a lot of people don't, also who I mean, if you don't read philosophy, you don't kind of get to hear the stories or read the footnotes and stuff like that. But a lot of these philosophers, they were inspired by people in their lives, artists, stuff like that. Like I wouldn't be able to philosophize as much about blackness as I do if I didn't have the proper example, like real contemporary example of how the things we know from the past translate to what we're experiencing now and what we're seeing for the future. Like everything soulism is embodies is like a philosophical narrative and concept that I can speak about because you thought of it.
Mm.
I wouldn't have thought of it. I mean, I probably would have thought of like, oh, we all connected, we all black, we all, but I wouldn't have put it in word. I wouldn't have put it in words or even thought to, you know, orchestrate it in the way that you have. So I think that that's what also makes great philosophy is the artist doing things that inspired the philosopher to say, you know what, that is pretty right. That's pretty true. It may not be true for everybody, but it's pretty true to me, and I think that I can make a compelling argument for it. You know what I'm saying? I think that that's
Facts.
that's that's the beauty of it. So yeah, I think that you're inspiring a lot of philosophical thought, whether you do the figurative work or whether you dip into abstractions or whether you mesh both or whether you stick to um, your unknowns, or whether you decide, okay, I'm gonna do moons now. Like I think that you're this sort of is a representation of the conversation that really needs to be had. Like when we did the Black Artist Workshop, um, I feel like it was a great exemplar of your work. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is what I do. I paint. I'm learning how to break out the traditional, square. I care about proper framing, which is the crazy part is none of these in here except the Sister Harriet Tubman has a frame on it.
Yeah.
Like if you know Kenneth Randall, like Kenneth Randall loves when he got a beautiful frame around one of his paintings. So for the fact that not most of the paintings in here, the traditional paintings, not to have a frame,
Yeah.
um, is pretty crazy. Um, so it's like, as I was saying, but I think that I'm excited to see what this sort of inspires in you because you were able to create more of a narrative with your work instead of like just showcasing it,
Mm-hmm.
which what the Black Artist Workshop kind of was. It was just kind of like showcasing it. We were just kind of placing stuff where it needed to go
Yeah.
in order to fit. But with this, you really orchestrated, okay, this should go next to this. This got to go on this wall. This, you know, because those could have been switched. You know, you could have decided to mix all of this up. You could decide to put the unknowns on the floor in front of the paintings like we that were like the intentional, like the first intention. But
Mm-hmm.
now you've orchestrated a story. You've dipped a little bit into like, like curating. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah,
Something I definitely want to do. But
yeah,
yeah, we're gonna wrap this up, y'all. We are excited that you stayed around with us for the talk, and um, we will be making a video so that you can see the work at some point. Anything you want to say, Matt?
yeah. I mean, we'll catch y'all later. We are excited to see the show open next in the next coming days.
Alrighty,
Yeah. Till next time.
till.